Hi friends, you probably saw the title of this video and expect to see me review Luminous Legends, which I will, but I wanted to address the points I made in my previous video saying that I wasn't going to buy Luminous Legends. I'm bored, I don't want it. Something I am happy that I did was not buy this palette right when it dropped. I believe this dropped maybe 2 weeks ago, and I said to myself, hey, you just received as a gift from a subscriber Danessa's Lightwork VI Freedom palette, and because of those shades and the entire experience, I wasn't as impulsive about buying Luminous Legends because I thought all of my color, texture dreams were fulfilled with Lightwork VI, and they are. But when I waltzed into Sephora and encountered this palette, I said, okay, I knew it was going to be beautiful, and many of you had mentioned in another video I posted that this formula is made in Italy, which it is. And I noticed actually on the IG post releasing this collection or releasing the details about this collection that it very much mimics what I think is one of Pat's best formulas, even in the cardboard, and that is her quint formula. And I think this first released in her Celestial Nirvana collection, not last year's, but the year before, I think. I can't recall. My apologies for the lighting change. It's just one of those days. When I first encountered this formula, I noticed the mattes and these metallic finishes. The mattes almost were like a powdered fabric, and the metallics were ultra shiny, especially from the Bronze Bliss palette. This right here, I don't know if you all remember, but look at the shine of that silver metallic, okay? When I first saw that silver shadow, I gasped. And although it was in a cardboard packaging and released during a holiday collection, I admired the brand's efforts to bump up the quality of the shadow. At least I think the quint formula is better than her little quad formula, not the ones that released in the 2020 collection, but thereafter. And then I encountered this comment, which I absolutely love. I'm not presenting it as a negative comment at all, but I see it as dialogue that will be taking place in real life. If they were in front of me right now, like, are you nuts and not considering Pat McGrath to be in your contender for best eyeshadow palette of 2024? The reason is this, and all timestamps are down below. If you want to click over to where the swatches begin, where the demo begins, I'll see you in that section of the video. Luminous Legends I knew would be lovely because just based off, again, what I've experienced from the quints and from the color story I saw on the IG photos, this is not Pat's best. And I could show you an example of what I think is pinnacle Pat McGrath Labs. This is from the Divine Rose collection, where Divine Rose 2 Mothership 8 release in this chrome pink packaging. And yes, these shadows are untouched. It is a collector's palette. You see what I mean? When we're comparing, or we are setting the criteria for the best eyeshadow palette category, packaging has to be up there, concept, innovation, as was demonstrated with Danessa's palette, concept, I think, captured by Byredo's Mineralscapes, and then you have this. This is still fantastic. But once you see this, if Pat released a palette, a holiday palette that was all gold, we've seen the all gold already. I have like 2 of those things in my collection. I don't know, a metallic red? Oh my gosh, like a mirrored chrome red packaging for holiday. Okay? That for me will be in contention for best eyeshadow palette of the year. And this is another example, a gift from a subscriber. I am just forever grateful, but one year she purchased the Selfridges collaboration with Pat McGrath Labs, housing my beloved Mothership 6 Midnight Sun with the gold detailing around the, I mean, come on. See, this for me is pinnacle Pat McGrath, okay? Not this, not this. This is fantastic, I think, for that part of the consumer base who doesn't want to spend $125 or what's $128 now for her motherships if she ever decides to release another one. They don't want all this chrome, okay? They don't want this huge heavy palette. I understand that completely. This addresses a completely different sector in that base. But if we're talking about best of, I didn't want to lower my criteria standards just to have Pat McGrath in the mix. That's all I'm saying. And that might upset some of you. It upsets me. I wish I could have seen more of this from Mother's brand, because the standard has been set and my expectations have been set. So when I see something like this, although released within the same vein as Mineralscapes and Lightwork VI, it doesn't come up to par for me, okay? And I haven't used it yet. And maybe my opinion will change. But like I had said before, if we had this formula, that's fantastic, okay? Italian made formula. In one of these, we could talk about this being possibly in the running for best eyeshadow palette of 2024. And just now I saw that the Roxa release is coming up soon from Natasha Denona, which I think is Lila 2.0, just based on the fact that it's purple, that it's in a midi format, and I cannot wait. Ooh, we'll see if that's in the contention for best of 2024, which I mentioned in my which one should I choose video that you can see here up above or down below in a link in the description box. Depending on how Natasha goes with it, definitely could be in contention. Again, the packaging looks just outstanding with that mold, and it's giving like different colors of purple just from the photo alone. I'm inferring, I could be totally off, but let me know. If it's anything like Xenon, I'm going to talk about it. And I would still put that over Luminous Legends. Again, if we had a Luminous Legends that came in here, of course, not all the shades will fit in a 10 pan format, but I'm being picky. I'm being picky because, again, what we've seen from Mother and what we're now getting, there's a little bit of space between there. This is what I'm saying. And you could also argue that there's nothing innovative about a Mothership palette, although I would say innovative in the way that Pat McGrath entered the luxury beauty scene with that huge of a palette, with those types of finishes that for the luxury beauty space at the time in 2017 were just out there in the cosmos. Now it's settled where you're seeing a lot more of these finishes kind of weave into more beauty brands that are not necessarily just middle of the road, like as we've seen with Danessa. I think Danessa has elevated these multi-chrome and different dazzling finishes that are just, again, as I mentioned, more forgiving on more lid types and textures than you're typically formulated in the eyeshadow. Again, the innovation I had just explained from Pat McGrath is the fact that she really just made a bang on the luxury beauty scene by just coming through with her vision and sustained that through Divine Rose 2, and they kind of teetered off with Utopian Dream and completely flopped with Sunlit Seduction, in my opinion. Will we ever see something like I just saw ever again? I most certainly hope so. I love the over-the-top made Mothership compacts with the mirrored chrome material. Give it to me. Give me a limited edition red chrome palette for holiday that houses all blit shades, triple number shades, VR shades, and the like. Then we could talk about best of. But for now, we will go into Luminous Legends. And I have to say, much prefer this size over this huge rectangle that we received last year. This is the size of Luminous Legends, and this is Celestial Nirvana. Luminous Legends retails for $76. And again, made in Italy. I'm sorry, I have to say it again. A suggested shelf life of 12 months. What was Celestial? 12 months still? Okay, I'll take it. I'm sorry, this is Celestial Odyssey. Let me get, where's Celestial Nirvana? Hello? This is Celestial Nirvana, but still bigger than Luminous Legends. Celestial Nirvana has 18 shades. Luminous Legends 15. I believe these cost a little more because there's more shadow in there. And alongside the Mega Eyeshadow palette, you have the little duos, and you also have quints. The quints look nice, and I was tempted last year to buy the remainder of the quints from the Odyssey? I can't remember. Oh my goodness. The collection from last year. I believe she released 4 different quints. This is Bronze Ecstasy, which I absolutely adore. And I almost bought the rest of them during a sale, but I said no. Just enough. So let's get into these swatches and we'll roll into the demo. And for that, it's time for you to come in a little closer. Ooh, Golden Muse has some creaminess to it. Almost reminds me of Danessa. Maybe I should use the other arm. Danessa's Cushion Chrome. I'm trying not to squish it too much. Ooh, that's pretty. It's flaky, so you have to make sure you press those guys in so they have a more reflective finish on the skin. Rose Afterglow, that seems to have a matte base but pearl in the finish, so I would categorize this as like a demi-matte satin, if you will. Flame Fatale. Ooh, beautiful metallic copper with that golden pearl through the finish. Sunkissed Rose, a matte rose taupe. That's lovely and feels creamy in the pan. I like these mattes. I like these Italian-made mattes. They have a different feel than the mattes found in her motherships. The mattes found in her motherships are drier. These have a little more creaminess to them. See how there's more of like a sheen to the finish too? It doesn't have a dry matte look to it, but more of like a satin matte, like a demi-matte. Stardust Peony, a softer metallic where it's not as in your face as the Flame Fatale. I keep forgetting these names. Much softer, but I think would be lovely across the lid, blurred out. Coral Caress, our second matte, consistent with this one, creamy to the touch and beautifully soft on the skin. Bordeaux Brilliance, this just feels lovely. Oh my goodness. The minute I touched that pan, I knew immediately it would be just lovely on the swatch. Orchid Opulence. Ooh, that turned out to be a lot prettier than I expected because it didn't look as wet as these guys here, but that pearl in the orchid backdrop of the shadow, my goodness, the reflectivity is just stunning. Moonlit Mist feels creamy in the pan, beautifully shiny, more of a straightforward aqua metallic color. Platinum Lilac, oh my goodness, it reminds me of that lunar shade from Bordeaux Bliss. That is just crazy. That's crazy shiny. And you have to be careful to not pick up so much because you will get some of those flakes in the swatch, but when we get to the demo, I'll make sure to work that texture into the skin. Honey Nectar. Ooh-wee. Beautifully shiny, creamy in the pan. Celestial Cerulean. Oh boy. This has a lighter base. I think what's special in that it has such a high shine finish, and you can see the base is not as strong as these two here. And actually it's a duochrome. I'm not sure if you can detect that, but it goes from cerulean to like violet. That's pretty. Gilded Bronze, straightforward, beautifully creamy, and just look at that swatch. The pickup is amazing. It'll be interesting to see how the pickup fares from brush to lid, because right now with fingers it's impeccable. Lunar Luxury. Hold on. Lunar Luxury is in this palette. Wow. They put Let's see how it compares, shall we? Playing the name game in Pat McGrath is fun. Oh yeah. That's pretty consistent. Okay. Very good. Very good. It's a repeat. It is, but it's a fantastic repeat. Our last matte, Sable Seductress. Dark brown. Ooh, more like a plummy dark brown, and a similar consistency, pretty much the same as these here. So here are all the swatches from the Luminous Legends Mega Palette, and I didn't expect anything less because, again, I'm acquainted with this formula from her smaller quint palettes, and I'm happy to see more of these textures in one palette. Yes, it is bigger, but not as big as these guys, so a little more practical in terms of the dimensions, but the most important thing we can do is just to slap these shadows on our eyes. I'll be right back. Gotta clean my arms. This lighting's killing me today, but we're gonna get through it. I slapped on Pat's eye primer, which I have been liking. I wanted to explore the blendability of these metallics, right? Not necessarily starting an eye look with a matte each time. I think that kind of widens the possibilities in terms of how you approach Luminous Legends, right? Because I don't want this just to be a rant and a review, but also a tutorial. If you happen to have this palette, you don't quite know how to navigate it yet, maybe you're not familiar with these textures. Let's start with one of these. I know I'm starting very conservatively, but I thought maybe if we go in with something like Gilded Bronze, which exhibits more of a traditional metallic finish, and see how that fares by itself. If I just wanted to slap this on without a matte and just maybe apply black coffee as an example along my lash line, will the edges look smooth? Will they appear blurred? And they in fact do. And I'm using Sonia's Kakishibu Kiyaki eye set because I like a little bit of stiffness, so I can better manipulate the contents of these shadows, right? So they appear smooth, and that is just lovely. Look at the twinkle from that shadow. Just from here, there's a little bit of smokiness and depth, not a whole lot. I most certainly can go in with Sable Seductress if I wanted to add a little more intensity here on the outer corner. But I love how that looks already. Okay, we're doing good. I could toss that same color along the lower lash line. This is a simpler approach you can take. If you wanted to use one shadow and not use 5 at a time, I totally get it. One way, however, that you can utilize the more powwow colors in here is to perhaps sneak one into the inner corner of the eye, and we could take this mint color. I think it'll be quite beautiful to nudge it here on the lower inner lash line, but I just wanted you to see the texture of the shadow. See my brush imprint? These are quite creamy, and maybe you might need to use a more traditional sponge tip applicator that has a lot more texture and not as soft as a brush as I'm using here, because you might not get the same pickup. I have to wiggle it back and forth to get enough on the brush and then enough on the lid. I decided to take that mint up higher through not only the inner corner, but a little on the inner lid as well. I like how that looks. That's pretty. This is a nice combination. Now, let's say you wanted to take the more traditional route and you're like, Alicia, give me the mattes through the crease. I like how this texture looks through the crease. I have no problems whatsoever just sticking to this type of metallic finish. But if you wish, I can go in with this Sun-Kissed Rose shade that took on more of a taupe quality to it. And I'm being careful with how much I apply. And I think just the right amount here finishes the edges of that bronze shade. And something I've mentioned before is that I adore these matte textures. When I first used them in the Celestial Nirvana quints, I immediately recognized how a fantastic formula that was and still is. Happy to see that it is consistently performing up to my standards and expectations. And who knows if Pat will have this matte in a future mothership. I would love that. Now that we started with a metallic here, let's go the matte route, right? If you're dying to see how that looks, I'll go in with the coral matte and toss that quickly through the crease, and color payoff consistent with what I see in the pan. Actually, in the pan, it appears a little more terracotta, and on the blend, on the application, a little more pinky coral. Not too bad. Not my favorite shade to start an eye look with, but I can see if you wanted, for instance, I'll go in with this guy here that had a lovely pearly finish on the blend. So you see that sheen on the lid. I think that's lovely. And I'm tapping that all around here, combining it with that coral matte and a little bit here on the lower lash line. I typically like to carry the same shade I applied on my crease on the lower lash line as well. Sometimes I'll mix it up, but I wanted to go in with this, what is called Stardust Peony here, but reminds me of the Cosmic Star. The Cosmic, I think it's just called Cosmic from the Star Wars collection that released a few years back. Maybe we can place this on the inner corner. Oh, I picked up too much. Too creamy, too creamy. Tapping here on the inner arc, carrying that higher and just making sure it overlaps there. Okay. And I want to place another bright shade on the inner corner. Maybe I'll go in with this guy here. Honey Nectar. Honey Nectar is hecka shiny. Very much was on the swatch, but very creamy. I have to wiggle my brush back and forth in order to actually pick up the shadow. So these creamier textures probably, again, as I mentioned with the mint shadow, better with a silicone applicator or a sponge tip applicator. That the spongy texture, I think, is just better in picking up these creamier consistencies. This wouldn't be bad on the cheeks. The coral shade, which reminds me of the coral shade that's found in Utopian Dream, by the way. This very much looks like it can be a Utopian eye, but it's okay. If you don't have a Utopian Dream, you don't have to worry about it. Before we slap on some lashes, you see how the Gilded Bronze eye looks without any smoke. I just wanted to see how Sable Seductress performs on top of a metallic, right? Because now it's already here on the skin. How will it blend? Will it look choppy, uneven? I just picked up a little bit and lightly tapping here on the outer lid and carefully building up the color and not over manipulating the placement, right? Because as I'm trying to rely on the texture itself to make the blend happen, without me getting too crazy with the stroking, right? And that, I think, looks pretty good. If you wanted to change your mind or add a little more smoke, but you didn't start with the matte, you started with the metallic instead, you can be successful with taking those steps, right? There's a little bit of unevenness there. I think naturally, since, again, I had the metallic on first, and when you combine the matte with those particles, it won't appear the same as if you had applied the matte on just the skin with the primer or on top of another matte. But not bad. You know, from here, looks fine to me. Blurring the edges of the lower lash line here, taking that out in that nice type of an effect. Now it's time for lashes, and I'll be right back. Here are the final looks from round one, and what I can extrapolate just from these two or just this demo is how easy this palette is to use. From a formula standpoint, it's solid, and I didn't expect anything less, again, just from my experience from this formula in her older quints that released in previous holiday collections. I do enjoy the ratio of neutrals to colors here, and we'll get a little more into color in the next demo, but the fact that I could just throw in this mint with the bronze and it still look fantastic, in my opinion, I think is a great way for a beginner or one that doesn't, again, entirely know how to navigate this palette comfortably. You definitely have the confidence, or I think you should, in just slapping on whichever shade that you like. Typically, you will keep the lighter, brighter shades to the smaller regions of your eyes, the lower inner corner, the inner arc of your lid, spotlight effect across the lid, at most just across the entire lid, and then use the more medium, deeper shades to create shading through the crease, or just use the more medium tone shades depending on your complexion across the lid, as I did here with Gilded Bronze, feather the edges, and that just be the entire eye look. Slap on some lashes, maybe just mascara. So again, I do enjoy the flexibility of the palette and how easy these textures are to use with the finger. Well, I didn't use, well, let's do that in the next demo. I'll pick up one of these shinier textures and tap it with my finger and see what we can get if we were to simulate a situation where got no brushes, but I gotta put eyeshadow on my eyes. We could do that. So with that said, let's take this off and I'll be right back. Round two, and I have my eye on this metallic here, specifically Bordeaux Brilliance. As I had mentioned before, I wanted to use a finger application to demonstrate the ease of pickup and also blend when going directly from a finger to the lid. And something I wanted to mention, because I saw Danessa's, and yes, I know this is a Pat McGrath palette, but the point I'm trying to make is how Danessa emphasized how her formula is finger forward. That's exactly what she said. She aimed to create textures that were not intimidating and accessible for all tools, including a finger blend. And I think Pat's formula also is very much finger forward in that respect, where, you know, not bad that I could get pretty nice pickup here. Now, I prefer a more refined finish through my crease, but if I was in a jam and I had to use my finger and kind of blending that out, that's not bad. I want to see this guy in action, and I'll use a finger. Platinum Lilac. Platinum Lilac is shiny, and I think will be more of a spotlight, because having this on my entire lid, it would just be far too metallic for me. You could do that, but see how icy that appears? I'm gonna keep it just like that. I'll finish the second eye in a moment. I just wanted to see, you know, what this was doing, but to refine the edges further, I'm taking the same Bordeaux color and placing more through the crease. This has a smoother finish than Gilded Bronze, what we applied on the first demo. This doesn't have the same amount of sparkle, but still has nice sheen and a soft blend on the skin. I'm placing that here on the lower lash line, so I want to have a nice smoky effect here on the entire eye. But I would love to apply this stunning orchid shade. Oh my goodness, when I swatched it, the blue twinkle in this shade is phenomenal. In fact, I think I'll use my finger to apply this on top the center. So you see how that brings forward that beautiful blue flip on top of their Bordeaux color. That's a nice combination. Okay. And if I wanted to add a little more finishing to the edges, I could go back in with Sun-Kissed Rose and just carefully run that color here on the very outer edges and just blow it out completely. But on the lower inner lash line, this like chunky shade here, Golden Muse might be a little tricky with the brush. You see the flakes on there? You have to just press them into the skin so they can adhere and appear smooth, because this does have beautiful shine. But again, check out these brush imprints on the pan. That's insane. So maybe I need to find, if I can, my silicone applicator from Makeup Forever. Where did I put that thing? But for now, I'll just be patient and slowly build this color up. Oh, that's lovely. Okay. To finish this side, I started with some stuff, yes. So I think we might have to go in with the Seductress Sable Seductress something, and go in with the halo. So I'm tapping the dark brown on the outer part of the lid, following up with the inner part so we can create that bracket, and then have Platinum Lilac as the spotlight effect for the eyes. And I'm using light pressure here because I don't want to bring too much of this texture through my crease. I said before in the first demo that I don't mind having that through the crease, but very little, as I want to mainly have this matte on the outer parts of the lid as well as through the crease. If some of it catches, is totally fine. But I'm impressed by this matte. This is soft, easy to blend. Color payoff is outstanding. Wow, I just need a smaller brush to get the inner part of my lid here, just to have a smoother blend so it appears more airbrushed. And actually, what I can do is pick up Sun-Kissed Rose and run that along the edges of the Sable Seductress color so we could create a more refined gradient there. Oh, that's pretty. And continuing with our Sable Seductress shade here on the lower lash line, trying to make a connection because I like that winged out look. So I might have to return to my first brush here and just use the tippity tip. You don't actually have to wing the edges out, because with halo eyes, depending on your preference, your eye shape and whatnot, you could actually take this rounder, as opposed to what I'm doing here. I'm pulling it out more so that it comes to a hazy refined point, but you most certainly can keep it rounder but still haze it out, but you will have to keep the blend tighter to your lash line to achieve that. Ooh, that's pretty. Oh, that's shiny. It's crazy that she put Lunar Luxury in here. Platinum Lilac is basically Lunar Luxury, but lilac. Inner corner, should we just go like total 360? Either with the Flame Fatale shade or the Cerulean shade on the lower inner part of the eye. I actually want to, you know what, I want to keep those two for the next demo as like my main event lid shade, but I do want to see, oh, I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to get the, oh my gosh, so creamy, the Flame Fatale here on the inner. I like that. I like this combination a lot. We're going cool on the metallic and the matte somewhat, and all of a sudden, bam, copper calling all copper here on the lower inner part of the lash line. That's pretty. That was a good choice. Very good, Alicia. But you know, because I love to use as many shadows as possible, you know what, let's do it. Lunar Luxury on the inner corner, but just like spotlight effect. So let me grab Sonia's Summer Koi brush, which is thinner or not as wide as her smudger, to get a little more precise here. Oh my goodness, this is pretty. I like what's happening. I do enjoy the contrast between the warmer hot and now all of a sudden we got platinum silver on the inner corner. Wham bam. But placing a little bit of the Sable Seductress matte carefully with that same small brush, and I'm using whipped like strokes here to just dial down the brightness from the inner lid, right? I want to keep the spotlight effect more so on the inner corner and not so much on the inner part of the lid, as I want that matte to be the main transition between that and then Platinum Lilac. Oh, but that's pretty. I need a little more here. I'll place Bordeaux Brilliance here, more so on the lower lash line, just a little more intense serving of color, because I don't want it to appear kind of hazy. I want it to be ultra hazy. That's better. Okay, now that we slapped on these shadows for demo number 2, let's apply these lashes and I'll be right back. Round 2 complete, and I am happy with how both eye looks turned out, especially how the Platinum Lilac evolved. It started off strong, but you saw how we can steer the eye look depending on the placement and the application. And this softer violet eye, I quite enjoy, especially since we added the Orchid Opulence to the center of the lid to bring out a little more dimension, not only in color but in shine as well, because that does have more sparkle than Bordeaux Bliss. Bordeaux Bliss BB has more of like that metallic burnished look, which I think is beautiful. I think it's easy to pick up, easy to blend with a finger or a brush, especially if you just needed to slap on something quickly that gives you color and smoke but will not overtake the entire look. It still, in my opinion, remains soft, but served as a great backdrop if you wanted to pair it with another matte to make it smokier, or another Dazzle Razzle shade to make it shinier, to invite another color into the mix. So for our last demo, I think I would love to go in with Flame Fatale and Celestial Cerulean as the main stage lid shades. I know I haven't gone into this guy as a main stage, but you most certainly can envision this being in Platinum Lilac's place, or me applying this as I did with Gilded Bronze in the first demo, just all over the eye, and then using one of the mattes to smoke out the edges. So hopefully you can identify a pattern that I've been relying on for the entire video. And now that we've established some sort of an outline, let's get right to it. I'll take this off and I'll be right back. Oh, we have to fix this blush. My apologies. If you're wondering, I am using the Hourglass Dragon palette because I thought the blush colors were soft enough to give me flush but not interfere with the eye looks. The bronzer actually is the YSL bronzer that I showed like a month ago or so. And what else? Of course, I'm using my Prada powder for under the eyes. Let's just drop a little bit of highlight. You're getting a little bit of behind the scenes action of what takes place when switching eye looks. I almost always have to redo my blush and whatnot so that there's not this strange empty space here from where I remove the eyeshadow to where my blush begins. We're going in with the Flame Fatale, and this is, my goodness, super shiny. What a color. And we can explore how well it blends out. Now you can see when it's packed on like that, it's going to have more of like that metallic effect. But if you wanted to explore how it fares blended out, the base of color won't appear as prominently, and you'll just have the sparkles here as they scatter out to the periphery. It won't be as color heavy as we've seen from Bordeaux Bliss, that doesn't have the same amount of sparkle effect that you see here from the Fatale shade. But I actually like how that looks. I know it has more, again, of a scatter effect, and it's not as straightforward as the more traditionally formulated metallics in this palette, but nice to know that I can just be a little more haphazard with this formula, right? And it's still, I think that's pretty. That's pretty. And with the Cerulean shade, I will be a little more conservative with. Actually, let me get, hold on. I had to grab my shader, so I want to do the wiggle and get enough on the brush and see how that looks on the lid. Whoa. I'm gonna tappity tap so we could first get the color there. And you see that the base of color, although it's a duochrome, the base of color is not as strong. There's like more space in the backdrop, if that makes any sense. It's not performing the same way as Flame Fatale is. So you have to ensure that you pack it on if you want a little more of that opaque finish on the lid versus more of like that slightly washed out effect if you don't want it to be as in your face center of lid. What can we do, however, on the outer corner? Well, we could go in with that Sun-Kissed Rose shade, but you know, I have to say I'm happy that Sable Seductress is in here, because in order to steer it a little more, just to ground it a little bit, to have that more neutral smoke on the outer lid is the route I would go. If you wanted to fully commit, you can just continue to take Celestial Cerulean out from the lash line, blend out the edges, and just fully commit to the blue eye. And maybe throw in either Lunar Luxury on the inner corner, the mint shade on the inner corner. Heck, you could even do the Orchid Opulence on the inner corner. I think that would be quite nice, actually. But I'm trying to review and see what can we use, what we haven't used already. You know what? I'll continue with the Cerulean shade. I just want to see what it does as I just continue to punch on the shadow, but now purposefully bringing it into the crease, even with this texture, and pulling it beyond my lash line. It's, again, it's not moving in the same way. It doesn't have that same finesse as the other metallic formulas in here. But I think if you continue to tap in the shape that you wish to achieve, you can get, I mean, whoa. Just be careful here, right? Have your concealer brush on standby in case you just have to punch out a little bit of overblending, as that will naturally occur, especially if you're using a large brush as I am with my beloved T6. You could use a smaller brush, as I did with my, I think it was the 01, the T5. T5 is flat and smaller, but I'll continue just pulling that out carefully. You see the effect that has. It's beautifully shiny, but the edges are not as, they're not as smooth as you will see if I used a matte. But I don't care. Now with my shader brush again, and just pulling this color along the outer part, as I do want to apply something else here on the inner corner. Oh, the eyes are reacting from all the removing and the application. It's fine. We're gonna be fine. Inner corner, we could go mint, we could go a lot of ways. We could go with the platinum lilac shade. I think, let's see, let's do mint. I think the mint will be lovely here on the inner corner, but you could have gone several ways. I mean, the possibilities are endless. I'm just tapping here and taking it high, so it has that really nice cerulean to mint transition. And for the inner corner, I think I'll do Lunar Luxury. I think Lunar Luxury will be just a powwow spotlight to have here on the inner part of the eye. I think it will bring it all together beautifully. And as a hypothesis or another possibility, you wanted to keep the blue tighter to your crease and have it appear more neutral smoke. You would have skipped the step I took in pulling that shade beyond the crease and lash point, kept it more under the crease, and then went in with Sable Seductress to smoke out the edges. That's just another idea if you're not comfortable with this example. We gotta finish this eye. Oh my goodness, what shall we do? I'm gonna keep it like this actually and mimic what I did with the cerulean side and just take Flame Fatale further out in the same manner, right? And just use this shadow to just be the look. Okay, I would like to make a contrasting choice and have something. Oh, no. I wanted to go in with, what is this? Honey nectar on the inner corner. Well, let me wipe this brush more because I used it with the blue on the inner corner because I think that would be beautiful. We have to wiggle back and forth here for ample pickup. There we go. Okay, and I'm not keeping this shade just to the inner part of the eye. I would love to bring it more on the inner lid because isn't that beautiful? Oh, look at that. That was a good choice. Flame Fatale here on the lower lash line. Maybe trickier to apply in this way. Definitely, I would recommend that you use a stiffer brush. And on the close-ups, I'll show you how this is more scattered. You see how that's more scattered? It's not going to appear smooth. Okay, so I just wanted to place that in the forefront because if you were expecting Flame Fatale to perform like Bordeaux Bliss or even Gilded Bronze, not exactly, but I don't mind that texture where it is. You know, I think it adds to the overall feel. If you wanted to refine it a little more, take a much fluffier brush and just continue whipping it out in this way. And then if you want, you could tap your finger to serve as an eraser, or you could take your concealer brush if you wanted to take away a little bit of that shadow and just refine the finish. Inner corner time, and then we'll slap on the lashes. Figuring out, however, what we can do. I mean, we're going super warm here on the entire eye. I could invite Orchid Opulence, you know what I mean, if I wanted to. I think that'll be kind of cool actually. So Orchid Opulence here on the inner part of the eye. Ooh, that's pretty. You can't go wrong with copper and orchid. Okay, I think that is a winning combination. Just whipping it here and combining it with the flame shade. I also want to brighten up with Honey Nectar more so. And tappity tap here so that can appear brighter. Yes, something in me is telling my soul to go in with Sable Seductress as a shadow liner. I think we should do that. And we got it with a smudger, okay? This shade here, tappity tap on the lash line with the flame shade. How successful can we be in building up this shadow on top of a texture like Flame Fatale where you can see Sable Seductress? Not too bad. Excellent. Now you can keep it right where it stops on the lash line. If you just wanted that intensity here, you can stop. But if you wanted to wing it out, I try to follow the angle of my lower lash line and then I sweep back in to create the body of the wing. That's how I like to go about it. You don't have to follow my lead on this, my example, but I like my shadow liners to be a little more prominent so that you could actually see the wing shape, right? But again, you could have just stopped at the lash point. Ooh, that's pretty. We're keeping it. All right. It's lashes time for this final demo. I'll be right back. Here are the final looks using Luminous Legends Mega Palette, and I actually quite like how I committed to these textures, didn't rely on a matte. Sorry about my slightly red eye, happens when removing the eyeshadow sometimes. How I was able to create a smoky look with just the color itself. And I did bring out Freedom Palette because if you just wanted to hear or see quick comparisons, standout ones, I wanted to swatch this one here. Oh my goodness, I forgot what it's called. Where is my spatula? Fluid, which I wish on the pan she had the formula because I forget, but I wanted to quickly swatch Fluid because Fluid reminds me of Cerulean, Celestial Cerulean in terms of the texture. And I'll quickly grab CC from Luminous Legends just so you can see them side by side. Now, they are both incredibly shiny. I do think, however, there's a little more refinement here in the finish from Fluid, where you don't have the same amount of... the word that's coming to mind is chunky. I don't want to say chunky, but I think there's more... I think the particles in Fluid stick more together, where when you blend Fluid out, it's just smoother. I don't know if you can see that. Is it? Maybe it's the same and I'm just going nuts, but that's my standout observation because a lot of these textures I think people steer away from as they don't feel confident in relying on them solely to place all over their lid and also to blend out through the crease. You can do that with Luminous Legends, but you most certainly can do that with Danessa's formula. Also, another advantage Danessa's palette has are these halo formulas that you can use not only to transform the actual shadow on the lid, but you can use as highlight on the cheeks. The Freedom palette is a face palette, where Luminous Legends, it says eyeshadow palette. You can use some of these shadows probably for blush, maybe just the Coral Kiss one, Coral Caress. Everything else you probably have to keep on the eyes. But something I can do to stay in stay on brand, if you will, is to take this shade and I could pop that lightly here on the cheekbones, and look how that brightened the entire side of this face. I could also take this one and slap it on the Celestial shade and see how that brings a little more teal forward rather than the cerulean, and how it brightened it up completely. And if you wanted to stay consistent with the blue, you could take this guy here, what I think she calls the soft matte or satin matte, satin soft something, and finish the edges of Celestial Cerulean. If you happen to have both palettes, okay, you don't have to buy both to make that happen, but I just wanted to share that. And another quick example too is going in what I call the autumn rain section, is this guy here. This is just beautiful. Again, I do think Danessa's formula is just outrageously beautiful. The words can't come out. So easy to blend, and they have just a lovely effect on the skin. If I were to take one of Pat's metallic, that kind of, maybe this guy here, the I forgot what it's called, is golden something. You have to really work that into the skin in order to get the flakes out. But you see that this is more of a duochrome. This is more of a straightforward golden shade. Let me get the name. Golden Muse. But this is easier, in my opinion, Danessa's shadow to pick up with a brush than the Golden Muse shade, which I had tried to apply on my inner corner, I think, for the second demo. And then, of course, Danessa has these insane multi-chromes, right? So this is why I didn't buy Luminous Legends right away, because, again, I have so much with Lightwork VI, but I understand from a price standpoint, because Lightwork VI is, I think, $128. Luminous Legends is $76. If you wanted some of that sparkle and dazzle, you most certainly get it in Luminous Legends, 100%. This isn't a flat palette. I think it has fantastic range from colors to neutrals, and the mattes, I know they're just mattes, but I am thoroughly impressed still, ever since I used it for the first time from the Celestial Nirvana drop, how easy they are to pick up and to blend on the skin, how soft they appear when blending these out. And the metallics and the different formulas housed in Luminous Legends, I think they perform well. I'm happy with these looks. I'm happy with the previous 4 looks that I created. And this is a solid palette, right? Can you wait until a sale? 100%. I would wait for a sale. I didn't because I wanted to hop on the channel. Some of you have said please review it, and I was like, no, I don't want to. I'm just being whining about it, but here we are. And I thought it'd be a great piece of content to film. If you are deciding between the two and you can spend the money, I would get Lightwork VI. I would get Lightwork VI just from the system alone, that you could condense these palettes into the smaller mirror size here that you have on the lid, as I demonstrated in my Danessa review video. That in itself is a win for me. But if you're looking at budget, yes, $76 is less than $128. I get that completely. And Byredo Mineralscapes, well, that sold out unless you want to spend a whopping $500 or however much it costs now on eBay, Mercari, or Poshmark, or on these other third-party seller sites. But I'm happy to have both. I most certainly will combine them, as I like to do. And despite how lovely this Italian formula is, Lightwork VI for me still comes out on top. If you still have Luminous Legends on your radar during the Sephora sale, which if you are Rouge begins on November 1st, and if you're VIB or Insider, November 5th. So maybe you'll get the 20% off or 50% off. I do think that Pat is going to have Luminous Legends on sale on her site for upwards of $30. That's just my feeling based off what we've seen from her sale events in previous years. So just have it in the basket. Don't rush out and get it, because Makeup by Mario released the Ethereal Moonlight palette, which for me is like Natasha's Xenon and I Need a Nude mixed together. That's the next video. Stay tuned for that one. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Maybe like this video. Consider subscribing to see more eyeshadow palette tutorials, comparisons, swatches galore. And I would love to film that makeshift Moonlit Ethereal palette video using Natasha Denona palettes that we already have. Create our own Moonlit Ethereal palette. Definitely subscribe if you want to see that, so you can get the notification. And until then, I'll see you in those comments, and we'll see you on here again soon.